Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation, for sharing your story and your journey as we go forward in this healing path together. I would love to be able to illustrate a bit of the practice, theory to practice, use myself as a client if that is something that you are okay with doing right now.
I'd love to do that, yeah, I'd love to see what experience come forward for us.
Okay.
Let me describe to you a little bit about Ayurvedic psychology so you know the inner relationship dynamic that we're trying to work with, okay? On a personal sense, to me, the Ayurvedic psychology is concerned with the personality, which is the part of us that is concerned with life and living and the experience of living, and the soul. And the soul is the kind of there's the individualized soul, which is more like your droplet of the universal soul. And what the soul is outside of time and space, where the personality kind of exists, right? And so because it's outside of time and space, it also is very impersonal to the personality. It is, it is capable of omniscience, omnipresence, right? And it is kind of like some people say it is God, some people say it is reflection of God, however kind of suits your mind to imagine this idea of soul in Ayurveda, right? And so the dynamic of the relationship is between the soul and this personality, right? And the soul becomes the healer. Soul can be the mother, the brother, the father, the sister, the lover, the child, whatever the soul need to be, in order to have the relational healing experience internally, right? And so we try to work on finding what needs to be worked on first, which is basically what we try to work on is finding the inner reflection of the outer suffering, which is, oh, I'm suffering for anxiety, depression, I feel a lot of shame, or I have this negative self-critical nature, whatever outer pain you're feeling, we work on finding the inner reflection of it. Right? That may be a traumatic experience, that may be a hard relationship, that may be, whatever number of things that has happened in your past. That's, say, the inner reflection, which is the imprint, which put the imprint on your personality, right? And the personality became this belief system that I'm not lovable, right? Or the personality became this belief system that I'm powerless, or my voice does not have worth, right? Or I need to please people in order to be safe, right? That became a belief, so we find the inner reflection, which is usually a belief or some sort of like a construct, emotional construct, basically. And what we do in this work is then once we find the belief, it's about like, okay, the personality and soul are going to meet wherever this belief comes up. And the aim is first for the soul to show unconditional love for the personality, regardless of the state of the personality, right? And so creating that dynamic in the inner relationship first, then that develops into more of a dialogue and a negotiation with the personality as a way to allow some modifications of the behavior or the experience or the reflection or the belief, which allows the personality to relax more, because there's a more of like this, like, for example, you take this belief of, I'm not loved, and you replace it with like, oh, in this moment, they love me, right? I believe I'm not loved, but in this moment, they love me, right? And so maybe the belief shifts from I'm not loved to I'm loved sometimes, and so the soul, the say the soul and the personality meet wherever this belief comes up that I'm not loved, which is in outer experience usually, and you meet it with, and we modify. First, it's about you're loved even though you feel you're not loved. Then it's like, okay, maybe let's change the belief of the outer experience to I'm loved sometimes because this moment I am feeling loved, right? And over time, allowing the soul to become more embodied, because the personality has more faith in what the soul brings, because of this growing experience of belief, then trust that I am loved. Then when the soul becomes embodied, that experience changes too. I'm capable of loving, I'm capable of receiving, I am love, And so that is kind of the journey we want in Ayurvedic psychology, right? And most of us are like where we're still negotiating with the personality. And so, but ultimately that's the enlightenment goal, is that realization, the faith, which comes through experience that I am love, right? Okay. So as we drop into the work, I'd like you to bring kind of your pain point, the mental, emotional pain point. Okay. Go ahead and speak about it.
Sure, sure. Based off of our conversation, I feel the emotional pain point would be around being a burden. So the full story of my life, and I'll try to
Mhm.
encapsulate, but soul wise, I was born deaf. I was born with fluid in my ears, and I grew very dependent on my parents, my family. And there's been this common theme where it's finding myself dependent, whether it's on significant others or friends, or like whether it's financial support or strength. And it's this relationship of always needing that dependency. Yeah, and I feel like that would be the pain point that causes depression, anxiety, that causes lack of sleep, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Okay.
So I am a burden, right? Thank you for sharing that. And what I'll do is, what we'll do is I'll walk us through like a breathing exercise
Okay.
to clear the mind and then become grounded. After we do like 2-3 minutes of practice together, will kind of bring our awareness, right? Our sensory awareness, and through it, the attention of our mind to this idea of I am a burden. Okay. And, we'll see where our senses lead us in our awareness. And what we'll also do is a dialogue, so I might prompt some questions, and your part is to ask that question internally and then go back to kind of the grounding breath. And I'll remind you,
Okay.
the grounding breath, to listen for the answer. And sometimes the answer comes, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the answer is verbal, sometimes it's a vision. Whatever it is, we allow the belief to lead us. That is the personality kind of leading us through the answers, right? Um, to where we need to go with this study, this, and get this insight that we want around this belief, I am a burden. Okay. And so your job is to really try to not think the answer, just go with your awareness and your attention to the breathing and let the answer come. And like a dream spontaneously arising, the answer will come too. Maybe the silence is the answer, and that's okay. You tell me, all I feel is silence. It's like, okay, I'll guide you to the next place through it. Okay? All right. Okay, don't be, yeah, so not allowing frustration to affect the experience. Oh, I'm not doing this right. I'm doing this wrong. I'm being a burden on Anup by not helping him.
My goodness. Okay. That's good to know.
Okay, so let's drop in. What I'd like you to do first is, as you breathe in, let your attention go from your crown to the sacrum, or to the root. So breathing in from the crown to the root. And as you exhale, attention goes from that root up to the crown. So you're running your attention from the crown to the root as you inhale, and from the root to the crown as you exhale. This first step helps to clear the mind and to flush out any incoherent vibrations inside of the chakra system, in the spine and in the brain. So breathing in, crown to the root, and exhaling root to the crown. Do it 3 more times on your own. Excellent. Then we'll go to the next step. This is the grounding breath. This is the practice we'll return to after every question. So as a way to give more space and grounding for our mind while it waits to receive our answers. So the grounding breath goes breathing in, crown to the root, and exhaling your attention down to your feet. So inhaling, crown to the root, and exhaling down to your feet. Continue doing this 4 or 5 more breaths. Continuing to breathe, crown to the root, and down to your feet. What I'd like you to do as you do that, bring your awareness to the words, I am a burden. You might say the words internally, just in your mind. I am a burden. You might repeat it just how you feel it. As you continue to breathe, crown to the root and down to your feet, just as you repeat or keep your attention on this word, I am a burden, let the feeling of it become embodied. And notice what you feel in your body as this feeling or this belief, I am a burden. And what you notice, please describe it to me.
I'm feeling jittery, a little shaky. I felt a pressure in my ribs. I feel physically cold and dry.
Okay. Jittery, shaky, tension in your ribs, physically cold and dry. Okay. Continue to breathe, crown to the root and down to your feet, and sit with this feeling of I am a burden, jittery, shaky, cold, dry, tense. And as you sit with this feeling, I'd like you to just say internally, thank you for showing yourself to me. Thank you for becoming present with me, this feeling of I am a burden. And continue breathing, crown to the root and down to your feet as you get comfortable with this feeling of I am a burden. Crown to the root, down to your feet. Continuing to hold your gaze, your attention, your awareness with this feeling of I am a burden. Ask, can you show yourself to me? Can you show yourself how you would like me to see you? This feeling of I am a burden. And then go back to breathing, crown to the root and down to your feet as you see what it's showing you. When you see, describe it to me.
So the first thing I saw was a little kid who I yeah, I mean, he looks like me. It's a lot of fear and worry and panic. And then immediately afterwards, I saw a tick, like the bug. Yeah.
Interesting. The tick was on the kid? Separate vision.
Separate.
Okay. So going back to breathing, crown to the root, down to your feet, empty the mind, and remain with the awareness of this kid, scared, chaotic, continuing to breathe, crown to the root and down to the feet. And you might say, thank you for showing yourself to me. Ask him, can you tell me your name? Yeah. What is it?
He said it's Michael,
Michael.
which I found entertaining. I'm trying not to intellectualize it, so I'll just be in the moment.
Go back to breathing, crown to the root and down to your feet. Yeah. There's no need to try. Just go back to breathing, crown to the root and down to the feet. And you go back in the flow. Being present with Michael. Michael, thank you for sharing your name with us. See you. Can you tell me how you're feeling, Michael? Ask that question internally and then go back to breathing. Crown to the root and down to the feet.
Says he feels alone.
Can you tell me how come? How come you feel alone?
Something like his parents are gone.
I see. Continue to breathe, crown to the root and down to your feet. Holding this feeling with Michael of my parents are gone. I'm sorry, Michael. Sorry to hear that. Can you tell me where they're gone and what happened?
I'm saying work. I'm seeing flowers and seeing a train.
Okay. Go back to breathing, crown to the root, down to your feet, keeping your gaze, inner gaze on Michael, being present. I see they're gone to work. Looks like they're traveling or gone out to some beautiful place with flowers. Michael, can you tell me how come you're here and not with them? Go back to breathing, crown to the root, down to your feet.
I felt anger with that question.
Okay, I see you're angry, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to make you angry, but can you tell me what made you feel that anger?
Exclusion.
Exclusion. Okay. Continue breathing down to the root and down to your feet as you hold this word, exclusion, in your awareness. Down to the root, down to your feet, exclusion. Michael, I hear you and I see you, that you feel excluded. And I'm so sorry to hear that. You know how come you're being excluded? Can you tell me, Michael? And go back to breathing as you listen.
They wanted to be alone. They wanted to go on a trip, just the two of them. He seems like my father, Michael's father, was working nonstop, was burnt out, was frustrated, was taking it out on us, so they went away, just the two of them.
Going back to breathing, crown to the root and down to the feet, and sitting with this story of being excluded, feeling left behind and being alone, left out. I'm really sorry that happened, Michael. Can you tell me more about how it makes you feel? I heard you said you felt angry. Do you feel other things? Or can you tell me more about your anger? Anything you want to say?
Why does he get to be rewarded? Why does he get to leave and travel? Why am I stuck here?
Because I'm a burden. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to make a joke, but isn't it so interesting how we take in an experience and then we lead to conclusions about ourselves that are so unfair and so painful? You may not understand right now, but we'll figure it out together, okay? Michael, thank you for sharing this experience and taking us on a journey to learn, get some insight about why this feeling of I'm a burden is in this body, and helping us to see your experience and see what happened to create this feeling. I hope to work with you more, and I hope that we can heal this feeling together. Thank you, Michael. I love you. You can just say a parting message like that for him. Something like that. What feels authentic?
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for protection. I hope that we can serve you with love rather than fear.
And one last thing is ask Michael, it's okay if we work together whenever we feel this feeling of being a burden.
Yeah, he's excited by that.
Thank you. I love you. All right. Let's chat. Let's debrief.
Wow. Yeah, that was beautiful and wild, and the being able to trust the emotion. My first impulse was to try to, well, why that? Well, why that? So just being able to sit with the emotion and just the
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's just debrief for you for a moment, okay?
Okay.
And talk about the process. So this feeling of I'm a burden, right? Um, First thing you have to start doing is start to look for that feeling and the shades of that feeling in your day-to-day experience, right? And so you might search it in various kinds of negative feelings. You have to search it earnestly, right? That you're not like trying to manifest it out of bias, that is there a feeling of I'm a burden and therefore you see it. But like, you really kind of feel into the physical feelings, what you felt earlier, right? That's why we kind of spend some time sitting with the jitters and the shakiness and the tension in the ribs and there was one more thing you mentioned, the cold feeling. Yeah, right, the cold feeling. And so it will remind you like that is, or you might just notice Michael arise, like the feeling of like, oh, Michael's here, this feeling. Or, and so, or this feeling means Michael's here, right? And what you want to do, you can't pause and do a process like this, right?
Right.
Because feeling might arise when you're talking to a friend or a girlfriend or a colleague or something, right? And so really, what you do is you just go to the grounding breath, breathing crown to the root and down to your feet. And you and you sit with the feeling while observing what's happening. Like, feeling of jitteriness, coldness, shakiness, tension. You sit with it and don't let the feeling take you away from what's happening in front of you. And so you allow the breath to calm Michael enough, right? So you can be present. And you can also tend to Michael. In the beginning, it'll probably be like, hey, Michael, it's okay. I see you. I see you're feeling afraid of being excluded because you're a burden. Something like that. Whatever is the honest feeling. Um, you just say, it's okay. I love you. Thank you for showing yourself and joining me here as you promised. And you keep breathing crown to the root and root to the ground, and you get through that moment as best as possible. And intuitively doing just this much, becoming aware of Michael, acknowledging the feeling, and trying not to react, but rather to love, you'll just get better. Just the process of spontaneous creation and improvisation through those moments that will happen by being present with the pain and the moment, right? Usually we get absorbed by the pain and we lose ourselves in the moment. Here you're being present with the pain and the moment. So you're like the soul, unattached, witnessing, responding. And so over time you get mastery over that. And by experiencing more and more self-control and regulation over time, Michael doesn't show up as separate. Michael might show up as a feeling and just say, hey, I'm here to remind you I'm feeling scared and I know you got this.
Oh, man.
Right? That's faith. Now you got faith in yourself. Okay. When Michael says that. So that's the experience, and simple, again, go back over. I kind of went a couple steps forward as I tend to do. Going back over your work going forward is to kind of honor this agreement the best you can, which is to go to breathing crown to the root and down to the feet, which is kind of like a physiological reminder of inviting your awareness to Michael, right? And you say, hey, Michael, I feel you, or I see you, and I know this is a hard moment. Let's just breathe through it and get through as best as possible. Something like this. And you breathe, and then you improvise, you create. In that moment, if you feel spacious, you might respond much better than you ever have. In that moment, you feel contracted, you might respond badly, but not as badly if you completely lost yourself. And that's all good.
That's amazing. That's so helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. So that's that. So that's the experience of going in, and then we come out with some kind of a guidance like that. Now you have a process that tends to the inner relationship. It tends to self-soothing, self-regulation, self-healing. So it naturally leads to growing sense of trust and belief with yourself. And ultimately, as the healing happens spontaneously, like a vision, it transform into like some kind of faith in yourself.
Okay.
Just doing this simple process. Okay, it's not so simple because you have to be work to be present.
Say.
But it's simple, it's not easy, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's kind of how I approach Ayurvedic psychology, and the placement of this in the overall medicine is we always lead with relieving some amount of suffering in the body, your pain, your discomfort, whatever challenge you're having, sleep problems. If you suffer less, you have more capacity to be present. If you're suffering, the tendency is to zone out, tune out, run away. Naturally, fight or flight, right? You're suffering, run away, right? Don't stay. And that's the level personality functions, because personality is more subject to our evolution, for example, or our conditioning, or how we grow up, right? Or just the personality is affected by, like, you're depressed because you don't make enough serotonin, not because you have a depressed personality, right? So sometimes personality is affected by chemistry. So first we have to kind of create a space for the personality to be experienced, witnessed. And that space is created by relieving suffering in the physical body, however much you can.
Right.
And then as the suffering is relieved, the patients begin to trust the medicine. As they begin to trust the medicine, like they're able to then trust the process of going inward and trusting their vision, their experience when they go inside. And as they begin to trust their experience, then they're able to affect it, right? You're able to do this work very easily because you have a lot of experience going inside, and makes for a great model. And what I was saying earlier about the process of the patients describing their outer symptoms and having that reflect the inner physiology, right? They start to play with this idea of the inside is reflected in the outside. And then when the medicines go in and start to change the physiology, right? The experience comes that I'm able to modify my insides to improve my outside experience, right? Right. And this is important experience for patients that see me, especially because they come to Ayurveda when they have already searched for 12, 15, 20 years and
Right.
they're hopeless. So they have no faith in medicine. And so that experience, like, to kind of lure the psyche into realizing that the internal world can be healing and the outer world can be healing from it, then naturally creates more receptivity when I reflect the same idea on a mental level. And I say to them, you suffer from anxiety because you keep saying this thing that, but like, oh, but it'll be hard for them, or how can I make them do that? And, all these words sound like you feel like you're a burden on people, you know, and so your outer experience seems like you're a burden on people. And we have to think about, just like your symptoms had an inner experience, what's the inner experience of being a burden? Let's get into that a little bit, and then that's how you introduce the mental emotional work, and naturally it leads to spiritual development, because spiritual development is being able to experience God in day-to-day moments. And what better purpose of a God than to show up when you're in most pain and soothe you, right? And so you bring the work, the mental emotional work, as you might experience God. You don't call it God. Maybe you call it soul, but you don't even need to call it soul. You can say yourself that doesn't suffer, right? And so, and more they experience their self that doesn't suffer. That experience feels miraculous, because, like, there's so much suffering around. How can I have this self that doesn't suffer? It naturally leads to question, what is this phenomenon?
I feel like I just want to highlight that sentence, not just for the work that you and I have done right now, but for everybody right now that's looking at news outlets and social media and just what is it? What is this suffering? What is this phenomenon? Just we can work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's acknowledge that since you brought it up, there is so much suffering in the world. And, I'm always concerned about saying one side is suffering because there is always another side that is also suffering. And so the truth is we all are suffering together, whether we are perpetrating violence or on the receiving end of it. I don't see a solution in politics until we resolve this within ourselves. If I am a less violent person and I can raise my 3 boys to be less violent, more thinking we all are interdependent, right? That will lead to a better world. Now, that's easy to say, but what I mean is this work that we did in the past hour leads you to truly experience and cultivate and express and manifest love in your life. And that the process of doing that, the moral process of becoming non-violent, unselfish, honest, having integrity, that process of really experiencing the highest form of it leads you to become the best person you can be. With that, when you're raising your children, you model for them that possibility. And they have their own journey to become the best they can be and bring their best gift forward. And the world suffering is only going to change when we can evolve communal spiritual life that is a reflection of individual spiritual realization, right? And so, I get bothered by all that is happening and suffering, but to pay too much attention and to suffer with who all are suffering out there is a kind of a painful distraction from the work you can do to be a better person to your wife, your kids, your parents, your neighbors, vulnerable people that are standing right next to you, than worrying about vulnerable people that are a world apart. Let's be people who take care of our person next to us, and let's hope they have someone next to them take care of them. And so I think for most people that is much more practical way of becoming healthier and better, and much more practical way to improve their world than to worry about what's going on out there. Yes, we should have awareness about Gaza and Ukraine and things so that we can express some political will, with our morality. But to day and night obsess about the suffering there, where it make us against each other,
Yeah.
this is not really helpful. Anyways,
I
that's a odd way. I've never made a political statement. I don't know if that was political or what. I feel
think
like we need to work on our world around us, not, we'll feel defeated all the time, trying to think what will happen with Gaza. And if you're feeling defeated, how can you work on yourself?
feel like that's a perfect period to our conversation and our
Mm.
session. I'm thrilled to have had this time with you, and I
Thank you.
feel so blessed and connected to know you and learn from you. And I know eventually there will be a time where I will go out to Seattle and I will meet you face to face and work with you face to face.
Seattle or Iowa.
Or
We're
Iowa.
moving to yeah,
Perfect.
North
So
Davenport, Iowa. Yeah, and so I'll be between those two, but my family's already there, and we're very happy to have a more grounded life. Yeah, yeah. But and look, I want to say for you also, the container for this conversation is created by you really offering the space for us to do it, and that space is an outer reflection of the inner cultivation of you. And so What a beautiful space you create, what a wonderful container for allowing insights to come through. Even I learned a lot, just reflecting to your questions and experiencing this with you. So, um, yeah, I really believe in your work, having experienced it, and I have a lot of faith in you through this experience to, bring a lot of opportunistic insights to a lot of people who come across your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.